The Candyman, children's entertainer, Mr. Mime, here to wreak havoc as we spectate the top-ranked player using Mr. Mime. This was in late September. Dr. Kendo here to give you guys the commentary, the play-by-play on it. As we're just about to hear the start, the ready-go. Just want to comment on the fact that, of course, when Pokemon Unite came for mobile, that was September 22nd, there were just, I guess, a few changes for Mr. Mime. Really just barrier kind of adjusted a little bit and fixed some bugs on guard swap, but it's really nothing major, so Mr. Mime, luckily, probably not a lot changed. It's actually going to be sharing the bottom lane right now with two other teammates, and of course, Purple Squad has the jungling Bulbasaur. Orange Squad going to be rolling with Charmander in the jungle right now, and of course, Lucario on Lucario there in the top lane. We will try to focus Mr. Mime, but whenever we do these spectator commentaries, just know the camera won't be 100% of the time fixated on Mr. Mime. It's just sort of our Pokemon of focus, we could call it. And so, of course, the Lucario is pretty much doing what you would imagine in Master's Class, especially if you've seen a lot of my episodes. We see a lot of this in the early game. Lucario, very good for just taking down that wild farm, all of those neutral enemies, and then you can deposit points into the goals, small deposits, little fivers, I guess any point values, 1 through 7, really, they score really fast. Gonna also get it some XP, so it's a nice boost to your XP, heals you a little bit, so it is a good strategy. It's something that most Lucarios will do in literally these first, minute or two of the game. And so Mr. Mime is interesting, a lot of Pokemon that we talk about so far, at least, that I've done for these spectators, we're still early in the series here on YouTube. Haven't even done an episode on every single Pokemon just yet, individually. We're going for it, we're gonna get there. But oftentimes we're talking about, how do they have an advantage in the early game, or do they shine late game? Mr. Mime, to me, actually has kind of a magical sweet spot in the middle game where it can influence a lot of things. Now, I don't really play much Mr. Mime. This is just to my knowledge of everything that I've learned, any research that I've done, and things that I've heard. So that's kind of what we do anytime that I have to speak on Pokemon that I may not be super familiar with in Pokemon Unite. And so with that, it's just a really versatile Pokemon. Your choices of movesets can really influence a lot of things. But one of the most obvious facets of Mr. Mime is having the barriers. Early on it's light screen. After you've leveled a bit, it's barrier. We were discussing the mid-game earlier because Mr. Mime really doesn't take that long to level up and get those abilities. This Lucario looking to be in a little bit of trouble right now as we have 3, I believe. Okay, no, depending on if Blissey would stick around, but no, that Lucario is out of there before I can even get the thought out. Slowpoke or Slowpoke. That Lucario meeting its demise there, but I'm not really sure what's going on here. I'm sorry, Gecko Kami. I'm not sure what you're doing, man. Playing as this Mr. Mime, sometimes you'll get the boosted gauge up. Of course, if you're hiding out in the grass, you might want to be assured, I guess, that your first attack is going to be that boosted basic attack. Wigglytuff coming out of nowhere from the Orange Squad to sing. But did you see this? This is what we're talking about. So those barriers were placed really in an advantageous spot for Purple because there were plenty of oranges there too that could have defended that Wigglytuff. But this Mr. Mime player created a situation that was, again, perfect, walling off the rest of the Orange Squad where they couldn't easily make it to the Wigglytuff, give it that backup that it needed. So you saw Wigglytuff obviously fell from that, and this really did set up Purple in a wonderful spot right now as they're getting all these KOs just before the Dreadnought. There still are 2 orange holdouts, and of course respawn time's a little bit low right now, so they are all trying to come back as we do see Dreadnought now on the map. And this is sort of interesting. We do need to confirm, yep, Mr. Mime did actually right there choose to pair Confusion with Barrier. Now, really, I'm sure that you can't go wrong if you know how to play Mr. Mime, of course, depending on your movesets, but oftentimes you might see that Confusion pairs with Guard Swap, whereas maybe Psychic pairs with Barrier. For instance, Psychic is gonna not just explode around Mr. Mime, but there will be an explosion of sorts around each of the barriers that you place down, and so it's sort of interesting to see that this Mr. Mime right here has not paired those moves together. In fact, crisscrossed them over, and once again, we're not saying that that's wrong. Anything that really gets you that victory, it doesn't matter, am I right? So we have left side squad Purple gonna be getting that Dreadnought, so they get the shields and experience, positions them well. They're also way ahead by score, double the score right now, of course, to the Orange Squad, who did rotate up early for Rotom right there once they, I think, realized, of course, that Dreadnought was out of there. Here is one thing, I guess, where Confusion could connect. You actually see this with the Mr. Mime player again right here. So with that Apom, when you do use Confusion and then it has the push effect, a Pokemon that is pushed into an obstacle, it could be your barriers, is going to receive extra damage. So, we may walk back that statement a little bit. But again, it's just one of those things it's interesting to see how you can play Mr. Mime. Just to reiterate the fact that it is versatile, it's a supporter with many tricks of its sleeve, as you would imagine, right? But in the early game, you really just set up your attackers a lot of the times, maybe your speedsters. They can get those KOs quickly when you have those light screens. And again, with that supportive mindset here for Mr. Mime, who is going to meet its demise from this Charizard player right there, who's going to pull off that Seismic Slam on it and also get this Wigglytuff KO. Looks like like Purple Squad getting pushed back here on that top lane. If you really wanted to save a lane and had to pick between the two, top one is the one you would rather lose compared to bottom, particularly this early on, and so Rotom may actually make it to that goal. We'll see. There are some other purples now, and Mr. Mime has actually jumped back into the fray, doing something that it can, which is stopping Rotom right there, again, with those barriers and things. Unfortunately, meeting the demise once again to the Venusaur, who's going to have pulled off that Unite, as well as Petal Dancing all around them, and so it looks like Wigglytuff and Cramorant are going to be able to stop that Rotom from hitting that goal. Sometimes you have to let it hit if something else is going on, elsewhere that does need your priority. Right now, it looks like they made the right choice. They should have committed to that Rotom and taken it down, so that was good. And it looks like Slowpoke Lucario right there was taking on the Charizard, but getting caught up now in a bit of a gang fight, as Orange is now here to back it up, and Mr. Mime going to set those barriers. So again, very good being able to support, but you oftentimes, really in that early game mainly, you want to let your attackers and your speedsters get that experience, so the Mr. Mime isn't really going to need that experience early on, because once again, we said this before, but it's going to get its abilities pretty fast. You just reach like level 4 through 6, and Mr. Mime can get aggressive mid-game. You think about Pokemon that can barrier like Crustle, and maybe in the case of Alolan Ninetales using Avalanche. If you run the build that we have here, you can do barrier and knock them into it with confusion, and that oftentimes, maybe you won't KO the opponent, but you're setting up a really good kill for somebody else. So we see now, of course, Purple Squad going for that second Dreadnought. Nobody has the numbers though, particularly, although more purples are focused on it, but now Orange does seem to be coming down as that Wigglytuff gets taken out by the Cramorant. It looks like Charizard's going to Unite. Mr. Mime also going to pull off that Unite. It's showtime, as we call it, and left side team. So Purple Squad is going to get that Dreadnought, almost taking down the Orange Cario right there. Venusaur going to get this KO on Venusaur. For Purple, pulling off that KO streak of 2. Also has a 50 with Wigglytuff right here on the Purple Squad having an XL. That would be a 40. Mr. Mime almost the same. So everybody ready to drop in some points here, it looks like, for Purple. And so we got to see if they can manage to do this. He does have this shield, and it looks like Mr. Mime also, this one's running a score shield right here. And so that was great, just barely in the nick of time, as Orange Venusaur tries to put the stop on it. Gecko Kami, our Mr. Mime player today, was able to get that goal. So very nice, looking to break that top goal maybe at this point. And so the fight for Rotom could commence, but here we can get a look just real quick, and that will confirm, of course, our movesets, but maybe just for some other Pokemon too, and show that we are running the eject button. Probably the best choice for Mr. Mime. Good to have your options for escape, which, by the way, if you did run like a buddy barrier on Mr. Mime, that could potentially help you, having that shield after you use your Showtime Unite move. Some people run XP share because, again, you don't really need those kills early on, but if you want to be able to level up, stay kind of decently leveled too, XP share could work for you. It's also going to help out your teammates. I mean, they're the ones that need that early farm, at least comparatively. But you may, of course, choose, and again, I'm not completely a Mr. Mime player, so anybody in the comments can feel free to correct this and give their input on the items that you might run. These are just things that I'm thinking about, but maybe offensive items, you go with Scope Lens or Muscle Band. Those will at least give some power to Mr. Mime's basic attacks, whereas when we were talking about Buddy Barrier, or I guess you could run like Focus Band if you wanted to, that'll allow Mr. Mime to kind of stay in those fights, especially in that mid-game, where you want to be a little bit aggressive and keep supporting your teammates. I don't know, would we go like Wise Glasses, Choice Specs, something like that perhaps? Just gotta keep reiterating the versatility, I suppose, of Mr. Mime right here. Looks like everybody is gathering here for the Zapdos. Purple Squad is gonna get the alert though that they are in the lead right now, and so it is 193 to 114 as it stands, and that Wigglytuff about to be blocked off, but no, is able to go around just barely within that wall, and then another expertly placed barrier right there from Mr. Mime, and then Showtime, ladies and gentlemen. Just in case people don't know, Showtime does have that stun, has some damage over time, basically. Can be a good move to turn the tides right here, as Cramorant also is pulling off the Unite. There was definitely a lot of Unites being thrown, as is typical with Zapdos and those fights. This is a close enough game, though, that, it's really, it could be anybody's game still at this point, but we can see Purple is taking down some of those Orange players, as Charizard also, you can see on the bottom lane on the mini-map, Charizard about to land that 50, and it does, which of course in the late game right here, especially with about a minute left, is going to equate to 100 points, and so obviously dropping in that hundo, very important, keeping them in the game, but you can still see that Purple actually maybe has widened the gap just a little bit, winning by score, but once again, whoever gets that Zapdos really could turn things around, so Purple obviously would not want Orange to. You're in a position you don't have to get it as Purple, but you really want to make sure that Orange is not going to get that, because your lead is not sizable enough. Now, some of their characters do have, 50, for instance. We have Cramorant right here, and we see the Purple Wigglytuff also as well. With Orange coming in, trying to make that maybe last little push of this game. This could be their last opportunity, and so they are pushing for the KOs. They're not going to burst Zapdos right now while that many Purples are still on the field to contest that, and so Mr. Mime is finally going to go down. Lasted a decent bit right there as Wigglytuff also now goes down for the orange squad. Purple Wiggly and Cramorant also down right now, so it's just up to Venusaur and our Lucario on the purple squad to make sure that orange is not going to get that. Although now we see that, of course, with 19, 18 seconds and getting lower, even if they get the Zapdos at this point, it might be too late. So, ladies and gentlemen, this might be all that she wrote. Yeah, you shouldn't speak too soon, maybe, because if somebody with a 50 drops in, then that would be all that orange would need to tip the scales. We can see a big skirmish happening on the mini-map down there in kind of that bottom left corner, but the time is up before I can even switch over to see that. Just to be extra sure and confirm, yes, it does look like purple was victorious right there, but it wasn't completely safe. Wonderful to see a close match, though, relatively evenly matched teams. Feel free to click an end screen on screen if you have annotations on to see another one. Again, we've covered a lot of individual Pokemon and we'll continue to do so. I'll catch you over there, and thanks for viewing.